It's so close, you can almost smell it. Welcome, everybody, to Deepdale. Welcome to the venue of a massive, big, ginormous, colossal, insert whatever win or whatever word you like there. It is a humongous Norwich City victory this afternoon at Deepdale in a game that it was so important they didn't lose. Well, they've done a bit better than that. They've only gone and won it. And it was a moment of magic from Gabriel, Sara in the 88th minute that did it. And what that means is that Norwich City are on the cusp of the Championship playoffs. They are in such a strong position tonight. One glance at the Championship table tells you that. You can smell it. There's a whiff of it. There's more than a whiff of it. You can almost taste it on your tongue. It's so nearly there now for Norwich City after what was a brilliant performance, I think, in the context of everything that occurred, but an absolutely ginormous result with bells and whistles on that will echo around Coventry, around Middlesbrough, around Hull, around the Championship for the rest of those challenges to here. Do not underestimate the size and scale of this victory ahead of what should now be 3 games that hopefully Norwich City can use to cement their place inside the top 6. I said it at Leicester in my verdict. I said if Norwich City can navigate these 4 games, Leicester, Ipswich, Sheffield Wednesday and Preston, and still be in the top 6, then I think they are there. And I'm stood here tonight saying to you for the first time, I think Norwich City are going to make the Championship playoffs. And I can say that with confidence. It's been growing. There's been there, I think, in my mind over recent weeks, and all credit to them, because the run and the turnaround of form since the turn of the year, but maybe even slightly earlier than that, has been absolutely tremendous. It's 11 Championship wins in 17 games. This, where away form, which has been much discussed and patchy, this is their 6th away win of the season, and it's now 7 points from a massive week that included a home game against Ipswich, an away game at Sheffield Wednesday, and an away game at Preston. That's a tremendous return, and actually the consistency of points, the consistency of performances is probably what has given Norwich City the edge over their competitors in this week, in this run, which I think we're going to reflect on and we're going to look back on at the end of the season as probably the week that defined it for Norwich City. And actually, given the result at West Brom today, has probably even brought 5th place back into play. It's a monumental win. It's a massive win. It's a win with icing and cherries and sprinkles on top. It's huge. It's ginormous. Let's get into it then. Norwich City, there was much sort of discourse and debate. Wouldn't he? And he did. Josh Sargent did start this game up front for Norwich City, but the biggest boost of all was Jonathan Rowe back on the bench. Christian Fashnacht wasn't in the matchday squad. He is expecting imminently a new arrival to his family, so we obviously wish him and his partner well in that, and I hope all either has gone well or will go well in the hours to come. There were 5 youth players. Liam Gibbs obviously out for the season. Shane Duffy came back into the starting 11 in the only change. And actually, I felt the first half Norwich were a little bit disjointed. It wasn't a major concern, but particularly in attacking areas, they were just unable to find that slickness, that cohesion in forward areas that at times has made them quite slick and has made them quite attractive on the eye and quite effective in terms of chance creation. They didn't really produce that in the first half. They were limited to kind of shots from range. Gabriel, Sara had one that Woodman had to tip round. There was one from Borja Sainz, but there was also a hooked volley over the bar. Preston themselves actually probably would have been pleased or more pleased with how the first half went. They controlled Norwich in the areas that they wanted. I thought the game plan that they constructed was pretty good, and they allowed Norwich possession in the areas that had it, but they were impactful in terms of their transitional play and the way that they got off the pitch without maybe producing that end product. I thought set pieces, they caused Norwich real problems. The delivery from Robbie Brady and Alan Brown caused chaos all afternoon, actually. But on reflection and given the events that unfolded at Hillsborough on Tuesday night, Norwich dealt with them relatively comfortably. You actually look across the game, and Preston have had 1 shot on target, and the saves really that Angus Gunn has had to make of any sort of serious note have been I can't think of one stood here right now, and that shows, I think, the control that Norwich City had on this fixture, even though there probably wasn't that spark and that cutting edge at the top end of the pitch. What was so successful, and you will have read the Ryan Lowe quotes, you will have sensed the atmosphere here today, which Norwich did very well to control, because Preston sensed an opportunity. This was all or nothing for them in terms of their playoff aspirations, and with that comes a motivation, comes a gun-ho, comes an intensity, comes a I don't know, everything that goes into that, I think can be very difficult to manage, very difficult to control, very difficult to navigate for teams at points, particularly a team that at points this season has really struggled with adversity, particularly on the road, and their record is there for all to see on that front. But the control they exuded on the ball and in ball possession, they showed composure. They were pretty effective. Like I said, they retained the ball for long periods without necessarily converting those spells into really clear-cut opportunities that they could go then and hurt or cause issues for the defence or for Freddie Woodman. It wasn't that, but actually just having the ball and surviving those periods was enough, because what it did was it compressed the crowd. It tired Preston out, and I think you could see that in the closing stages of the second half, where they weren't quite running with the intensity and pressing with the same intensity as they were in the opening half an hour, and Norwich then exploited that. But the first half, there was a disjointed element to it. Preston were probably the better side. They hit the bar through Jack Watmore. That's the closest that they came. Norwich, as I said, had a couple of sighters themselves without really constructing anything major. And it was a really tight, cagey affair, as you would anticipate. But what I think gave Norwich City the confidence to grow into the contest is probably two factors. But part of it is that control I spoke about, that ability to keep the ball, which is something that they have not done effectively on some stages. You go back to that Leicester game on Easter Monday, they didn't keep the ball well enough there. Today was the case where they used it pretty well, and even though there was a looseness at points, and I felt particularly in the first half they maybe didn't get their press entirely right, because they had the ball for long periods, that wasn't exposed in perhaps the way it would have been, and what it allowed them to do was control the transitional moments pretty nicely. Preston had few and far between. Dwayne Holmes caused some problems behind Sam McCallum. But in terms of the front two, Will Keane and Osmanich were reduced to very little in terms of clear goal-scoring opportunities, but even moments in behind. Shane Duffy and Ben Gibson and Norwich's wider team actually did a collective job of limiting them and reducing them to little. As I said, at the same time, whilst they didn't maybe have the same potency and the same cohesion and creativity at the top end of the pitch. So that was one aspect. As the game wore on, that control grew, I felt, and John Rowe added an additional spark to that when he came onto the pitch. You can see he's been absolutely champing at the bit to get back into championship action. He's been out since February with a hamstring injury, and he came on and immediately just added an X factor to everything that Norwich City did. I think his first movement was to run inside a fullback and get the ball from Sam McCallum and whip across into win Norwich a corner. It was a real spark of intent and energy and attacking impetus that they needed, particularly against tired legs. And okay, he's not produced anything tangible in terms of goals or anything like that, but in terms of momentum, I think it just swayed it a little bit, and it left gaps for Norwich then, and the game became more open for the reasons that I spoke about earlier in terms of Preston tiring. I thought Norwich looked a little bit tired towards the end as well, and it had everything. It had all the makings of a goalless draw, to be completely frank. And Norwich, as I said, throughout the contest, there was one opportunity. Borja Sainz had a shot that was deflected. Josh Sargent does very well to use his physicality to spin a defender, and it opens up the far corner. But he was just unable to maybe uncharacteristically so in the weeks that we've seen, find the bottom corner of the net. But beyond that, in terms of major opportunities, there wasn't too many. There were shots from range, there were shots that were blocked, but Norwich just didn't quite find that moment. And it felt like as this game wore on, it was going to be a moment of magic or probably an error that won it. And in the end, it was the former. And when you're speaking about magical moments in a Norwich City shirt, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who's produced more than Gabriel Sara. It's an excellent goal, and I'll get to the goal itself, but the pass from Kenny McLean, I think it was Kenny McLean, maybe someone will correct me if I'm wrong, was just exquisite, because it's such a small, narrow target. It's such a small, narrow space for him to thread a ball in. He does it to perfection. And the spin from Sara is unbelievable, to almost sort of free himself from two defenders. Then he sits down another, and then he finds the bottom corner. It's poetry in motion in real time, and just truly befitting a player who is going to be a Premier League footballer with or without Norwich City next season, because he has been unbelievable. And you look at his goal contributions, the double that he has in the Championship. I think it's 14 goals now for him in the league. It's a remarkable return, and even when he's been dropped in different positions, even when he's had to go and play on the right flank, even when he's had to maybe do things out of position slightly, he has the ability, the intelligence, the game awareness to go and do it and go and apply himself to a very high level. And the reality is, because of Stacey bombing on outside him, he can come and play centrally, and it adds an additional body to what Norwich are trying to do, and it gets them out of tight situations. really nicely. And when you have a player like him, when you have a player like John Rowe, who I've mentioned from an attacking sense, but I also thought from a defensive sense was superb in terms of just shoring up that left side with Sam McCallum having a tussle throughout the afternoon with Dwayne Holmes that eased when it went off. But John Rowe just helped solidify that and offered him real support. He's going to go unnoticed a little bit, but I thought it was absolutely tremendous, particularly the context of him coming back in his first game for a significant period of time. It was that maturity from that side as well as the X factor at the other side to go and impact the game from an offensive sense that made this an excellent kind of cameo from him. And I think he came on 72 minutes or so. So, look, this was a performance that was about grit, it was about survival, it was about control, and it was about riding with the punches at points. And I think the fact, actually, in hindsight, that they were able to survive the first half in a way that, as I've mentioned, was slightly disjointed. It was nowhere near what I would describe as an accomplished or complete Norwich City display. But what it allowed them to do was it built a platform and it drained Preston, I think, of energy. And when you don't have the ball and you're chasing, people who have played the game will tell you similar. There's nothing worse than constantly having to chase a team that is moving the ball around pretty consistently and popping it around with composure. And that is an element, I think, that David Wagner will be, and I spoke to him afterwards, and will be incredibly proud about. And, you know, to then have the character to go and win the game, yeah, it's unbelievable. And people will have seen the results elsewhere. Hull beat QPR 3-0, but Coventry lost at Birmingham. Middlesbrough drew at Ipswich. It's a big weekend for Norwich City. There's no way to dress it up. It's a big weekend, and it puts them on to 71 points. 74 has been enough in all bar a couple of the 30 years since the Championship was, well, not that long, but since the Championship was rebranded, and you know, we spoke about it in our podcast during the international break. 74 has been the kind of target that I think Norwich City, and David Wagner referenced it a few weeks ago, that you have to hit. Norwich are on 71 at this moment in time. I think they probably need one more win. Maybe, of course, you'll always be greedy and want more than that. But I think the reality is, and obviously it's dependent slightly on what happens with the games in hand of the respective teams. But those teams below them now are going to have to do significant amounts, whilst hoping that Norwich City, it would have to be a dramatic collapse now to see them finish outside the top six. And you know, who knows? In the weeks ahead, it could even be about playing for fifth spot. Which of course would open up a potential playoff semi-final with Southampton. But look, there's work to do, and David Wagner and his side will not be complacent at all. But with 2 home games ahead, it's now about finishing the job, and they've got everything there in front of them to go and do that. And I think what has been evident about this group, and what's been so admirable about this group, is they've had plenty said about them, plenty written about them, plenty criticised about them. But that mentality, that strength, and actually I think that period and those words have almost sort of helped them. It's bonded them closer. It's brought this togetherness. And are they the best team in the Championship? Absolutely not. But the togetherness that they have, the spirit they have, the bond that they have, the way that they're playing at the moment with confidence and swagger, it's a real joy to watch. And I think you'd be hard pressed, even as a neutral fan, to not admire the story from the position that they're in, from 17th in the table, to get themselves into the position that they're in now, on the cusp of securing a playoff spot, and who knows, with potentially bigger prizes down the road, and we'll look at those as and when they appear. It's a remarkable achievement if Norwich City can go and finish it, and then of course they have 3 games to glory, and that's the way that it should be approached. But yeah, an absolutely seismic afternoon for Norwich City here in Lancashire. And those 1,500 fans who were here today, absolutely jubilant at the end. Wagner spoke about how this group of players have maybe turned everyone, myself included, I hold my hands up in that, from doubters to believers. And one thing is for sure, if they can get in the top 6, I'm not sure anyone would relish playing them in the form and the momentum that they're in at this moment in time. But those debates are for another day. Right now, it's about enjoying a really, really good win here this afternoon. Pinkin.com is the place to go. There's some David Wagner quotes up there already. My pointers are up there as well. I've got the match report up. We've got plenty more analysis and reaction to come over the coming days as well. And it allows us, after what's been a pretty frenetic period with Easter included, just to take a little bit of a breather, a little bit of respite before 2 absolutely massive Carrow Road games to try and get the job done. One last push. It's so close, you can almost smell it. Thank you very much for watching from Deepdale It's still light, which is it's good that we're getting to this time of year. Still big coat though. I will see you very soon. Thanks for watching.